The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword was first revealed at E3 2010, but was finally released worldwide by November 2011. Skyward Sword upon its release was a critical success, winning numerous nominations and journalist awards as well as selling over 3 million copies worldwide. With these things, however, the opinions people have on this game are rather mixed. However, I would say it's a mix that is mostly positive. Skyward Sword is a game that I didn't enjoy anywhere near as much as I thought I would. There is a very obvious appeal in being able to control the sword instead of controlling the character who holds it, but the idea of this had to come with motion controls. Mostly everyone's main argument regarding Skyward Sword being either good or bad will always revolve around the motion controls. No one can claim that the motion control in Skyward Sword is perfect. What I mean by this is that the motion controls are not 100% responsive, and nor are they 100% necessary in most cases. In combat, if your hand action is different to how the game presents, this immediately causes a disadvantageous input. This leads to an enemy blocking your attack. As well as this, there are certain motion inputs which are very unnecessary. The pathetic excuse for motion that is displayed here is made with waggling of the Wii Remote in order to gain height, and not only this, but do you remember when getting doors was as simple as pressing a button? Well, now you can do an intricate motion puzzle in order to enter. At the times when motion works effectively, it's some of the best action a Zelda game has ever presented. With that said though, the other times where it's either not needed or doesn't work correctly can frustrate the player or remove any immersion that is felt whilst playing the game. The center bar was also used alongside the motion controls. The center bar was used to realign the controller for just in case it lost calibration, which for me ended up happening a lot. Not only does the center bar help keep the controller calibrated, but it also helps keep the motion on center, as when selecting an item on your C or B button menu, if there is no center bar plugged into your Nintendo Wii, it will be far more difficult to navigate or select your item, as the menu would not be able to recenter itself. While still on topic of the motion controls, I just want to discuss some changes I would have appreciated. The aiming I think is perfect. I find the aiming just fine, as with the nunchuck only having one analog stick, it means moving Link around whilst aiming with the Wii Remote is the only way I could see it working. But swimming and air controls could have been adjusted a lot. How you move the Wii Remote controls the way the Loftwing, the swimming, and even the beetle move around. This is terrible, and the controls would have been far more suitable for button configuration rather than motion. As said previously, for Loftwing control, you need to waggle the controller in order to gain height, and you can press A to move through the air quicker. Whilst the shaking of the Wii Remote would need to remain, keeping A to gain speed and using the stick to change direction would be far better, I feel. All of this is hard to explain, but the way you control your hand and wrist is very uncomfortable to do these things. Now let's get on to the positives in Skyward Sword. The two that I would argue in favour of are the graphics and the music. For anyone who doesn't know, the Nintendo Wii was standard quality, or 480i. However, Nintendo's competition at the time, Xbox and PlayStation, were already releasing 1080p consoles. Both PS3 and Xbox 360 supported 1080p output. This in comparison made the Nintendo Wii look a whole lot less powerful, but even with this information, Skyward Sword used the Wii to its full capabilities, and the visuals that were presented were both timeless and very pleasant for the eyes. Both the art style and animation make for a masterful display of the Nintendo Wii's graphics. The music was performed using a live orchestra rather than synthesized instruments. It was the first time Nintendo had used a live orchestra. It is safe to say that the use of an orchestra was a good thing, as this soundtrack is amazing, easily one of the best in the Zelda franchise. With using the orchestra, more emotion could be expressed, as the musical pieces were far more effective in creating environmental and cinematic scenes. Other positives regarding Skyward Sword can be found in form of an upgrade shop, the dungeons and bosses, the connection between Link and Zelda, other characters like Groose and Girahim, as well as the story. The story in Skyward Sword is very good. The shop, which can be used to upgrade or repair things in your arsenal using equipment found whilst exploring, is a genius mechanic. This was something that was missing in Breath of the Wild, which has items breaking far more commonly than anyone would like. The story as the game goes on has character development occurrences of all kinds. An example of this is Groose at the beginning is a bully, but during the game he eventually becomes friends with our protagonist. Quite a few of the characters in the story end up parting ways with Link, and the most notable one is probably our companion Fi. I found Fi extremely agitating throughout the entire game, but even I felt a bit sorrowful upon Fi leaving. It's sad, and once again the music really helps the impact of this scene. Skyward Sword is a good game. It's not even close to my favourite Zelda game. Everyone's opinions are different, but I didn't even give my favourite Zelda game a 10 out of 10. And this is because of how flawed some parts of Ocarina of Time are. Skyward Sword for me suffers even more with flaws and minor issues in comparison to its positives. Let's go through a bunch of minor issues I have with the game first. One of the mechanics Breath of the Wild took from Skyward Sword was the stamina meter, and in both of these games I strongly dislike this feature. However, the stamina meter in Breath of the Wild won't be depleted during fighting, and it also refills quicker. The one in Skyward Sword is used for everything. Running, swinging your sword around, rolling. It depletes very quickly and refills even slower, so waiting for this is just a chore, and its introduction to me was quite unneeded. The opening in Skyward Sword is extremely slow and tedious. The text cannot be skipped and nor can the cutscenes, which increases the amount of time you have to wait before starting to play. Another problem I have, which also occurs a few times in the opening, is unavoidable dialogue from characters who interrupt gameplay needlessly. This next issue is more of a major issue than a minor one, but the overworld is extremely barren. It manages to suck even more than the Great Sea from the Wind Waker, and none of the areas in the sky are really worth visiting. That's even with the goddess statue chests. The Loftwind controls help the overworld suck just a little bit more. My final issue, besides the numerous padded out fights, is our companion, Fi. To me, Fi was just terrible. She is easily the worst companion the player has ever had in Zelda. Even in comparison to other Nintendo games, Fi is so shit. There are rarely times where you get any helpful advice from her, and if you do, it's an obvious observation that can already be seen. Besides this, the most you will ever get out of her is that you have either a decrease in hearts or that your batteries are low. In the future, I plan on doing a review on the Skyward Sword HD for Switch, so as of right now, I'm sticking with the opinion that Skyward Sword for the Wii was good, but it had quite a few flaws, which was equaled out by the amount of positives there are. I personally don't feel it was as amazing as all the 10 out of 10 scores claim, but I certainly understand to why you would enjoy this game. The intimacy between Zelda and Link, the music, the visuals, this Zelda easily being the best out of all Zeldas in any of the other games, how great the story is, and even how enjoyable most of the bosses and most of the dungeons were. However, my final rating for The Legend of Zelda The Skyward Sword would have been a 7.5 out of 10, but since this game introduced Groose, I'm gonna have to go with a 7.51 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and sorry this took so long. I've been busy with work and also had some technical difficulties. So, bye.